Chapter 51. The Elderly Male Who Suffered a Fright 1. Miss Yun, us honest people don't speak hidden words. A few days ago, the woman who brought the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid was you. Fang Ya swayed her tiny waist and seductively walked in front of Yun Luo Feng. You have to know, no matter how much a person's appearance changes, she can't change the scent of her body. Besides, I'm very sensitive to smell to begin with. Yun Luo Feng lightly touched her chin and looked at Fang Ya with a wicked smile. I didn't know Miss Fang Ya was actually born in the year of the dog. In front of an experienced person like Fang Ya, no matter how much one concealed, it was useless, so it was better to freely admit it. I still have a thing to ask you. Fang Ya covered her lips and coquettishly smiled. Were you the one who solved the manluo flower poison? Yun Luo Feng's black eyes flashed with astonishment, and she thought for a bit before asking, I'm uncertain how you know. So it was you. Fang Ya's heart was delighted. Miss Yun, follow me, our Elder Rong wants to see you. Elder Rong. After hearing this name, Yun Luo Feng was stunned. Elder Rong wants to see me. I heard that the medical pavilion's Elder Rong is very haughty and might not even receive those royals and nobles who come to visit. I don't understand why he wants to see me now. Miss Yun, you will understand if you follow me. Inner court. Elder Rong held the teacup gently in his hands, telling the middle-aged man beside him, it looks like the commotion that this spirit-gathering medicinal liquid produced is tremendous. It's a shame that there is only one dose of this. Right, Mu Rong, has there been any news about the person that I had you locate? Mu Rong's face displayed helplessness. At present, we only know two special features about that mysterious doctor. First, according to Miss Fang, that mysterious person is a young woman. Second, that woman was dressed in white. However, in this vast sea of people, I am afraid finding someone based on these two conditions is extremely difficult. Even if you can't find her, you must find her. Even if it means mobilizing all the power of Medical Pavilion. The whereabouts of this mysterious doctor involved the survival of the entire Medical Pavilion, so he must find her. Knock knock knock. A series of knocking sounds came from outside the door. Without waiting for Elder Rong to inquire out loud, Fang Ya's seductive-to-the-bone voice came from outside the room. Elder Rong, I have already found the doctor who solved the manluo flower poison. Elder Rong's hands trembled, nearly dropping the tea in his hands to the floor. He noisily stood up from the chair, his excessive excitement led his voice to falter. Make her come in quickly. As soon as his words faded, the room's door was pushed open. The charming, red-clothed Fang Ya first entered the room, and closely following behind Fang Ya was a body clad in snow-like white robe entered Elder Rong's eyes. The young lady was born extremely beautiful. Her skin was white like jade, a peerless and city-ruining beauty. Wicked yet languid, her brows revealed an inherent haughty dominance, not allowing anyone to ignore. Yun Luo Feng. As the number one trash, it was impossible for Mu Rong not to have heard of Yun Luo Feng's name. Currently, seeing that the person who Fang Ya had found was her, the astonishment in his heart could be imagined. Only, for reasons unknown, the current Yun Luo Feng seemed to be quite different from the one he saw in the past. Are you the doctor who solved the manluo flower poison? Elder Rong's eyes flickered with surprise. His shock was not because of Yun Luo Feng's identity, of course. Rather, it was because despite already knowing that this mysterious doctor was very young, he did not expect that it would be this young. Looking at her age, which was only around 14, 15 years old. Chapter 52. The Elderly Male Who Suffered a Fright 2. That's correct, Yun Luo Feng lightly nodded, crossing both arms as she leaned against the door. Her tone was languid and unrestrained. If you have anything to say, be upfront about it. I still have other things to do. If you want to find me to treat an illness, I won't treat without 50 million taels. What is called arrogant and confident? At present, Yun Luo Feng thoroughly spelled it out, even causing Mu Rong, who originally wanted to explain Yun Luo Feng's identity to Elder Rong, to freeze in his spot. If you can really detoxify the manluo flower poison, don't talk about 50 million taels, even if you want 100 million, we will still give it to you. Elder Rong seriously regarded Yun Luo Feng. As far as Fang Ya was concerned, he was very confident. If it was Fang Ya who found the person, there should not be a mistake. Yun Luo Feng touched her chin, lazily smiling, your medical pavilion is quite generous. If I don't accept your 100 million, then I would let you down. Let's do it this way, I will detoxify the manluo flower poison, and you will give me 100 million taels. Additionally, I want to change the division of earnings for the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid. The selling price of 1 dose of spirit-gathering medicinal liquids is 20 million, I'll take 19 million of it. Elder Rong was stunned. He had just casually mentioned 100 million in passing, but this girl had really bluntly raised the price. Hold on. Suddenly, Elder Rong regained his senses, his astonished eyes staring at young Luo Feng. What did your words mean? You said the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid is yours. Do you possess other spirit-gathering medicinal liquid as well? Haha, Fang Ya couldn't resist laughing. Elder Rong, I forgot to inform you, the genius who answered that eternally difficult problem and the seller of the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid is the same person, they are both this girl. Elder Rong's entire body trembled, his eyes filling with disbelief. He didn't expect that a thing like the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid would come from the hands of a 14-year-old little girl. Girl, if you can cure the manluo flower poison, we will agree to any request of yours. During this period of time, it was not like Elder Rong had not attempted to detoxify the poison himself, but it was to no avail. There are some points in the solution that he could not figure out. Thus, this detoxification process must be carried out by Yun Luofeng herself. Okay, Yun Luofeng glanced at Elder Rong, only I don't want too many people to know this matter. When it's time to detoxify, you can send someone to Yun residence to find me. Elder Rong's eyes sparkled a few times. Girl, can I ask you one last question, where did you learn from? I'm sorry, my master, the old man, doesn't like to let his existence be known by other people, so I won't answer this question. Yun Luofeng yawned, slowly standing up straight. If you don't have anything else, then I will go first. As for the other spirit-gathering medicinal liquid, I will bring it to the medical pavilion later. As her words ended, Yun Luofeng turned around, intending to leave. When she walked to the room's entrance, she paused and said without turning her head, Right, Fang Ya, I'll trouble you to send me the medicinal herbs that I need to the general estate later. With that, she departed without consulting anyone. Mu Rong, what is the identity of this Yun Luofeng? Watching the young lady's retreating figure, Elder Rong asked, lost in thought. Elder Rong, this Yun Luofeng is the general estate's only child but was born with a trash disposition, unable to cultivate. In the past, she was previously engaged to Crown Prince, but not long ago, Crown Prince dissolved the engagement with her. I also heard Crown Prince and Prime Minister Mu Estate's Mu Wushuang are intimate. Mu Wushuang, Elder Rong furrowed his brows. That girl who came a few times and wanted to see me. Right, that's her. Chapter 53, The Elderly Male Who Suffered a Fright 3. Hearing that, Elder Rong coldly snorted, although Yun Luofeng can't cultivate, just her medical skills alone will cause all the strong people in the world to sell their life for her. Much more now that she possesses something like the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid. Yesterday I analyzed it for a night, and I still wasn't able to decipher the formula of the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid. If this incident was spread out, I gather that Crown Prince will cry and beg for her forgiveness. Ha. Fang Ya could not resist and laughed out loud. Elder Rong, you know, just now, Crown Prince was still ridiculing Yun Luofeng for being ignorant and unqualified for using such thing like the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid. I would really want to see his expression later. I'm certain it will be incredibly brilliant. He really said that. Elder Rong was very surprised. He was silent for a moment and said, I previously met Crown Prince and even thought he was a worthy figure, but looking at it now, this Crown Prince is only so. Fang Ya, Mu Rong, in the future, if those from the imperial family come to find me, I won't see any of them. Even if the emperor came himself, I still won't take notice of him. This time, not only Mu Rong, even Fang Ya was extremely astonished. Elder Rong, I know you admire Yun Luofeng and also feel grateful because she's able to treat Darren. However, closing the door and refusing to see people from the imperial family due to Yun Luofeng, I'm afraid. Fang Ya, you don't understand. I tried to coax the words out of Yun Luofeng to divulge where she learned, but she was unwilling to divulge it and even claimed that her master doesn't want other people to know his name. From this, I can infer that her master must be that person. Elder Rong slightly narrowed his eyes. That man's medical skills are superb and has an eccentric temper. If Yun Luofeng is indeed his disciple, then we definitely cannot offend her. Fang Ya was stunned for a moment. Elder Rong, you said that young Luo Feng is that godly doctor's disciple. I am not quite sure, but besides him, who in this world can teach this kind of disciple? When Darren was afflicted with the Manluo flower poison, I originally wanted to request that godly doctor to treat him but was refused by him. If Yun Luo Feng can really treat Darren, I dare to guarantee that she is that godly doctor's disciple. Elder Rong lifted his head to look at Fang Ya, and seriously ordered, Fang Ya, now that I have the detoxification solution, I must return at once. I will leave the matters on this side to you. Remember, you must ingratiate yourself with Yun Luo Feng. However, you shouldn't be too deliberate, an overly deliberate befriending will cause one to feel uncomfortable. Yes, Elder Rong, I understand. Fang Ya's eyes did not have its previous charm and were replaced by graveness. Yun Luo Feng had just entered the main hall of the Yun residence and had already seen the deeply sighing old man. The old guy clearly saw Yun Luo Feng, who stepped into the main hall, and used an aggrieved look to stare unflinchingly at her. Fenger, shouldn't you give grandfather an explanation? Why didn't you allow me to compete for the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid? Grandfather knows you currently have an outstanding innate skill, but if you possess the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid, your cultivation will definitely be even faster. Yun Luo Feng slightly paused on her steps, shrugging as she said, I finally managed to obtain 10 million by selling the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid, and now you actually want to spend 20 million to buy it back for me. Grandfather, even if you want to squander, you still shouldn't squander like this. Do you think it is easy for your granddaughter to earn extra money? You stinky girl, you actually said your grandfather is squandering you. Originally, after hearing the word, squander, the old man became furious and was about to ruthlessly lecture this girl, but belatedly reacted and opened his mouth in shock. What did you just say? The spirit-gathering medicinal liquid was sold by you. Chapter 54. The elderly male who suffered a fright. 4. Yun Luo Feng glanced at the old man. You seem to always have a slower reaction. If it was in the past, after hearing Yun Luo Feng's words, the old man would inevitably become outraged. Now, his entire head seemed to be dizzy, and toward Yun Luo Feng's words, how could he even hear a single word? That was the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid that caused a commotion in the entire imperial city. What's more, when he went to compete for the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid today, he was even subjected to a series of humiliation. What he did not expect was for this medicinal liquid to come from the hands of his own granddaughter. This type of extreme surprise caused his heart to quiver a bit, his entire body was a bit unsteady, nearly toppling to the ground. I was afraid that you would turn like this, which is why I chose to temporarily hide the matter about the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid. I didn't think that you would be such a spendthrift and actually want to spend twice the price to buy the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid back. Yun Luo Feng shook her head, lightly sighing once more. Speaking of which, grandfather, your strength is currently at high-level low-rank spirit cultivator, right? The old man's emotions gradually calmed down. After hearing Yun Luo Feng's words, he nodded, his head was still slightly dizzy. I feel that you are on the verge of breaking through. Yun Luo Feng caressed her chin. She appeared to be afraid that the old man had not received quite a shock as it was and added, Grandfather, do you still remember the master that I mentioned to you before? This spirit-gathering medicinal liquid was given to me by him, and after a while, I will increase your strength to high-level intermediate rank. Yun Luo Feng knew that, after some time, the old man would definitely be curious about the origin of the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid, so she once again used that fictional master. Boom. The old man's uneasily calmed heart finally collapsed after Yun Luo Feng's words. His steps staggered, and he heavily landed on the wooden chair, gasping for air. Are you all right? Yun Luo Feng was frightened and hurriedly walked over to stroke the old man's chest. Despite her earlier mental preparation, she did not expect that the strength of this old man's heart was strong. In fact, thinking from another perspective, if a beggar who was bullied every day had an undeserved fortune falling from the sky one day and received 100 million, that beggar's reaction would probably be even stronger. For those whose heart's fortitude was weaker, it was likely that he would directly faint. You stinky girl, are you genuinely creating troubles for this old man? You want to shock this old guy to death, right? Yun Luo had finally relaxed. When he opened his mouth, his first sentence was to fiercely admonish Yun Luo Feng, from now on, you will tell me these matters one by one. Don't fucking squeeze two surprises together. Not being frightened to death by you, this old guy is already incredibly fortunate. Yun Luofeng smiled wickedly. I'm merely worried about shocking you again when I raise your strength later, so I directly said these two things together. Fenger, is what you said real? You can really help me raise my strength. Both of Yun Luo's eyes shone. If I can raise my strength, I will then be a step closer to the #1 expert of Longyuan Kingdom. Although the #1 expert of Longyuan Kingdom and Yun Luo were both at the high-level spirit cultivator stage, that expert was at high-level advanced rank. He was not on the same class as Yun Luo, who was at low rank. Of course it's real. Yun Luofeng nodded. I just need time. Give me enough time. Not only can you break through, but I can also make second uncle regain his strength. Ha ha ha. The elderly man guffawed, his hearty laughter enveloping the entire sky above Yun Estate. You are truly worthy of being Yun Luo's granddaughter. I'm now very pleased that you and Crown Prince had already broken off your engagement. That Crown Prince is compatible with a woman like Mu Wuxuang. How can he match my precious granddaughter? What's more, I believe that not long from now, Crown Prince will regret his own choice. Chapter 55. Recruiting Men and Buying Horses 1. Inside the guest hall, the elderly male smoothed his white beard, his entire face flushed with satisfaction. There is still one matter I need you to help me complete. Yun Luofeng's lips lifted with a wicked curve. Now that you've already returned your million-men military power to that dog emperor, our Yun family has to form our own forces now. The elderly man was silent for a moment. Fenger, you have to think about this matter thoroughly. Organizing forces requires one to recruit people, and this movement is too big. It is highly possible it'll cause suspicion from the emperor. Thereupon, if the imperial family suppresses us, with our Yun family's current situation, we will be unable to successfully stand up to them. Grandfather, I've already thought of this matter thoroughly. A light flashed through those black eyes as Yun Luofeng's smile deepened. Not long ago, I had people publicly beat up Mu Shen, making my already dandy reputation spread through big streets and small alleys. Since it's like this, then why don't I become even more dandy through and through? You can tell the public that I threw a tantrum at home, forcing you to recruit 100 guards and 100 maidservants for me. As for the recruiting, you can have that dog emperor do it for you. The old man was stupefied and uttered hesitantly, Fenger, this isn't so good, right? You want to recruit people in order to form an army that belongs to our Yun family, so if we let those from the imperial family help us with this matter, with his wariness, he will definitely choose some people with deficient innate talents. I don't care about the innate talent of these people, as long as their bodies don't have defects and their age is under 18 years old, it will suffice. Having deficient innate talent is negligible when she possessed a divine, cheat-like artifact like the medical god code here. No matter how deficient, she had ways to make them improve their innate talent. Fenger, isn't there still one matter that you haven't considered yet? If you let the emperor recruit people for you and he places a spy in there, then everything that you do will be known by him. Facing Yun Luo's question, Yun Luofeng smiled, her brazen brows were filled with confidence. As long as he dares to place them, then I'll dare to accept. As long as he dares to place them, then I'll dare to accept. Just how much confidence was needed to make her say such egotistical and uninhibited words? Yun Luo sighed. It was not until this moment that he suddenly realized, when it comes to his granddaughter, he actually didn't understand at all. Fenger, I'll enter the palace in a little while. I'll let the palace's people assist me with the recruitment of people. Okay, Yun Luofeng winked. Grandfather, when you see the emperor later, don't forget to extort money from him. Everyone says Yun family's assets were completely squandered by me, so you will go confirm this statement. The old man was suddenly lost for words. He gathered this was the reason why Yun Luofeng would want people from the imperial palace to recruit people for her. Since this matter should not be delayed, Yun Luo did not stay anymore. After donning his court attires, he hurriedly had someone move the palanquin, hastily setting off towards the imperial palace. When he entered the imperial study, he discovered that in addition to Emperor Gao Tu, even His Highness the Crown Prince was in this study as well. His expression displayed a hint of hesitation, but soon his expression quickly morphed. Compared to his previous radiant glow at the general estate, the current him was somewhat dispirited. Old General, why did you come to meet Jen? Gao Tu saw Yun Luo's expression, coldly laughing in his heart. Even without thinking, he knew that Yun Luofeng, that trash, definitely got into trouble again. Your Majesty. Yun Luo kneeled on the floor with a plop, his aged figure appeared thin and frail. This old official's granddaughter considers the servants of the general estate are too few, and it doesn't conform to her identity as the eldest miss. Because of this, she is having this old official step forth and help her recruit guards and maidservants, 100 each. However, this old official is already old in years. How can I work this hard? Thus, I came to request your majesty for assistance. Chapter 56. Recruiting men and buying horses 2. Gao Tu's eyes flashed with astonishment, but more of it was schadenfreude. General, your contribution is countless, so young Luo Feng, as your granddaughter, will naturally enjoy a splendor that surpasses that of imperial sons and descendants. Thus, Jen will send the crown prince to help you recruit people. Thank you for your majesty's grace. This official still has one matter to request your majesty's assistance. Young Luo lifted his aged appearance, face filled with helplessness. Your majesty should have also heard that this old official's granddaughter recently became fascinated with medicine. To this end, she threw away all the money of the general estate on medicinal herbs. Therefore, this old official's estate really cannot support these many people. So, is it possible for your majesty to pay their monthly wage on behalf of this old official? It ought to be like this, it ought to be like this. Gao Tu's face exposed a smile. Then, your Yun estate's guards and maidservants' monthly wage will be paid by the imperial palace for you. This will be considered as a reward for a minister who has provided an outstanding service. Thank you, your majesty. This old official will excuse himself. Young Luo stood up from the floor, cupped his hands in salute, and then left the study. At this point, no one could see that the moment he turned around, his chrysanthemum-like old face had blossomed into a smile. This pair of father and son would never think that soon, a monstrous team would unexpectedly emerge from the Yun family. The people comprising the team were all the people that the crown prince had previously helped the Yun family choose. Moreover, even the money that supported this team was paid by them. When they learned of this matter, this pair of father and son was nearly angered to death. Emperor Father, what do you think this General Yun Luo actually wants to do? Gao Ling knitted his brows. Could it be that he wants to secretly recruit men and buy horses? Defect from the imperial dynasty. If he really wanted to recruit men and buy horses, then he would not come to the imperial palace and report. He would also not allow the imperial clan to get involved. Gao Tu sneered coldly. Hence, Jen actually believes it is Yun Luo Feng, that trash, who forced him to carry out this matter. Linger, when you help General Yun in recruiting people, the recruits should be the type of low aptitude. Gao Ling's gaze shifted outside the study, as though lamenting. He said, Emperor Father, this Sun subject thinks this General Yun estate is already coming to its end. First, its money has been completely squandered by Yun Luo Feng, and now she is still tormenting General Yun Luo like this. Having a wasteful and dandy granddaughter like that, I reckon General Yun Luo's lifespan will decrease. It won't be long before he will be angered to death by Yun Luo Feng. In reality, towards General Yun Luo, Gao Ling's heart actually harbored some deep admiration. Unfortunately, a person like General Yun Luo actually raised a good-for-nothing like Yun Luo Feng. With Yun Luo Feng's existence, how could the general estate not decline? Originally, Jen still wanted to let Yun Luo Feng be your concubine. Looking at it now, a person like her doesn't even deserve to be a concubine. Once Yun Luo dies, she will then be completely useless. Gao Tu's voice was very cold. In comparison, Mu Wuxuang of the Mu household is much better. She possesses outstanding innate talents, her personality is good, a paragon that is a motherly model for the kingdom, and a disciple of Jing Lin. In all of Longyuan kingdom, only Mu Wuxuang can match you. Gao Ling curved his lips. The existence of a trash like Yun Luo Feng was always meant to become a backdrop for Wuxuang's incomparable excellence. She only has this value. The imperial clan's work efficiency was completely different. Only a few days were needed to recruit the people that Yun Luo Feng required. However, after looking at the aptitude of these people, Yun Luo's mouth could not help but twitch, his heart even more anxious. Merely relying on these people's innate talent, can they really be soldiers that totally annihilate armies in the future? Yun Luo did not believe this point, but he still brought these people back to the general estate. Chapter 57. Recruiting men and buying horses 3. Rear Mountain. A man stood in the middle of the forest. Black robe fluttering in the breeze, his voice cold and deep, making people feel as though a sharp edge was pointed at their back. How's the matter that I asked you to investigate? Lin Chong, who was kneeling in front of him, did not dare to lift his head. his body stiffening as he answered, replying to Master, according to this subordinate's investigation, the Prime Minister has continuously been on bad terms with the general since 10 years ago. He deliberately divulged the war intelligence of the parents of Yun family's eldest miss to the enemy kingdom, causing the death of both of eldest Miss Yun's parents. The other matter was when the Yun family's second master, Yun Qingye, was once grievously wounded. General Yun headed to the imperial palace to request the imperial doctor to help but was stopped by Mu Wushuang's master, Jing Lin, leading to Yun Qingye's death. Yun Xiao did not speak. However, by then, Lin Chong clearly felt the surrounding air tense up, even the pressure on his own body became much heavier. Thirdly, Lin Chong swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Eldest Miss Yun was previously engaged to the Crown Prince, it's just that the Crown Prince had his heart set towards Mu Wushuang. Moreover, not long ago, that Mu Wushuang had secretly given an idea for the Crown Prince to frame Yun's eldest miss into forcibly grabbing a pretty boy in public, causing eldest Miss Yun to lose her reputation and cause her near death. However, even the Crown Prince is not aware that this idea was suggested by Mu Wushuang, and was just borrowing someone else's mouth to convey it to him. These are just the 3 important points, and these past few days, this subordinate also discovered many instances wherein Mu family had bullied eldest Miss Yun. By now, Lin Chong had finally understood how special Yun Luo Feng was to Yun Xiao. If he wanted to win the favor of his master, then he just needed to follow Yun Luo Feng. Thus, these past few days, he made a thorough investigation. From grievances of the past generation to the Prime Minister estate's humiliation towards Yun Luo Feng, even if it was only one word or minutia, he respectfully reported all of it. After he reported everything from his investigation to Yun Xiao, Lin Chong fawningly asked, Master, do I need to set the entire estate of Prime Minister Mu on fire? While I'm at it, I could also wipe out the imperial clan. It's their own fault for joining forces with Mu family to bully eldest Miss Yun. From Yun Xiao's motionless face, Lin Chong had difficulties seeing his emotions. However, Lin Chong could feel the temper of his master. The best evidence was the pressure on his body becoming stronger, even the surrounding air thickened, causing people to be unable to breathe. Lin Chong had actually wanted to cry. He was just telling the news, so was it necessary for master to frighten him like this? As expected, people who can converse with master must have a very strong psychological fortitude, otherwise, he could frighten you silly. She doesn't like others meddling with her affairs. Under Lin Chong's frightened mental state, Yun Xiao finally opened his mouth. His voice was cold as usual. Vengeance. Only by personally exacting revenge could one be most satisfied. So, it'll be alright as long as those from Prime Minister Mu's estate do not die. Still, this didn't mean he would be willing to repress his anger. Lin Chong was startled. Master's meaning was, as long as they didn't die, they could mistreat the people of Prime Minister estate however they want. Yes, this subordinate will do as you bid. Lin Chong respectfully cupped his fists, his eyes shining. This time, he must perform exceptionally. Who let those bastards of the Prime Minister estate bully their female master? Yes, in Lin Chong's heart, Yun Luo Feng was already their future female master. Otherwise, why would master hide his identity and come to the general estate, and perfectly willing to be a bodyguard as well? Next day, 2 pieces of news swept throughout the entire Longyuan. The first one was the robbery at the Prime Minister Mu estate. The money that they lost was actually stolen by Mu Shen. He also used that money to buy a ginseng from a traveling merchant that could allegedly extend one's lifespan. The result? After confirmation, it was only a common ginseng. He was cheated out of 45 million taels by someone. Chapter 58. Recruiting men and buying horses 4. This made Mu Xingqiu so furious he ruthlessly beat Mu Shen up, nearly beating him to death. The second news was the Mu family encountered thieves at night. Mu family's study and treasury were both completely incinerated by a big fire. All the valuable items were pulverized. Even Mu Xingqiu was beaten up by the thief. They estimated that he would be unable to leave the bed for at least 3 months. When Gao Tu heard this news, his royal bearing was incredibly furious. He was determined to find the thief. This hubbub caused everyone in the imperial city to feel insecure. The wealthy and the powerful were afraid of being visited by the thief, and the powerless were afraid of being framed as the thief. However, these people were very clearly overthinking. A thief that could come and go freely within the Prime Minister estate and could also cause such a huge disturbance would certainly not be ordinary. They would never find the thief in the common mass. When these two pieces of news traveled to young Luo Feng's ears, she raised her brow. Mu Shen hasn't sold me out. She did not expect that Mu Shen, this guy, would actually abide by his promise to this degree. Despite being beaten half to death, he still would not disclose the actual destination of the 45 million and had even made up some lies. The traveling merchant did not exist, so no matter how hard the Prime Minister estate tried to find them, it would be useless. Moreover, Mu Xingqiu was currently lying in bed, so how could they find the time to search for the traveling merchant that came from Mu Shen's mouth? Miss, I do quite respect the thief that visited the Prime Minister Mu estate, Qingyan reverently said. Who let those people constantly bully Miss? This time, that chivalrous thief helped us vent our anger. You don't need to revere that thief. Young Luo Feng squeezed Qingyan's cheeks, saying wickedly, you only need to worship me. Miss. Qingyan stomped her feet, saying with a playful pout. However, Miss really has changed a lot now, so why do those people keep calling Miss good for nothing? Miss clearly isn't that type of person. The mouths are on other people's body, they can speak however they want. Young Luo Feng raised her brows and stood up from the chaise lounge. Let's go. Yesterday, grandfather finished recruiting these people for me, I should now go look at the candidates. In the middle of the courtyard, there stood hundreds of people. Those people were basically half males and half females and were currently looking around. When they saw the young lady clad in white walking towards them from not far away, only then did the crowd gradually quieted. The royal family seems to be very efficient and were not stingy in finding me a bunch of low-aptitude people for me. Young Luo Feng lazily yawned, her bewitching eyes surveying everyone in the courtyard. These people's aptitude was quite low. It can even be said that it could not be any lower, and it was only marginally better than previous useless young Luo Feng. If it was someone else, even if they trained them their entire life, they still would not be able to break through to middle-level spirit cultivator stage. They could only go through arduous training at the lowest level for their entire life. Fenger, young Luo smiled wryly, helplessly saying, these are all personally chosen by the Crown Prince. I also heeded your desire, they are all under 18. Grandfather, don't worry, now that I've chosen them, I have my methods. Young Luo Feng provocatively lifted the corner of her lips. These people will be settled inside my Yun family's stone room. Young Luo was stunned for a moment. You are speaking of the room that your second. The stone room where second uncle previously stayed in. When the words reached his mouth, he swallowed them back in, using a puzzled gaze to look at Young Luo Feng. Young Luo Feng knew what he wanted to say and nodded. That's right, we will settle them there, and I will explain our next step when the time comes. I'm now exhausted, so I will return to the rear mountain to rest. After saying that, she no longer gave Young Luo an opportunity to ask anything else and headed towards the rear mountain. Chapter 59, Banquet Invitation 1. Rear Mountain. Young Luo Feng entered the house, hurriedly closed the door, and quickly walked to the bed. A moment after she laid down, a white light flashed through the room. When she regained her senses, she was already standing inside the God Code space. An adorable, light pink baby face greeted her sight. Currently, the baby-like face had an awfully aggrieved expression, his pitched black, big eyes were looking at her like he had been wronged. Master, you only visit me every few days. I'm very bored here all alone. Young Luo Feng's peerless face displayed a bewitching smile. Xiaomo, I came here to ask you about something. Do you have a way to prevent strangers from entering within 500 meters of the general estate? Xiaomo's look became even more resentful. Master, you only come here if you need something. If you don't need anything, you don't come see me. Although his words were like this, towards young Luo Feng, Xiaomo, this godly, cheat-like artifact, would typically answer any questions. It's not that I don't have the methods that you speak of. However, if you don't want your army training situation to be known by outsiders, you can let milk tea help. It can help you dig out an underground training facility within a few days. By then, if you train an army there, then no one will take notice. Young Luo Feng grew quiet. The Yun residence's stone room was humongous, but her recruits were also quite numerous. If she squeezed them in the stone room, they simply had no way to spread out and train. But if they trained in the Yun residence's courtyard, they could be easily discovered, and the news would spread around. That would be extremely disadvantageous for the Yun family. Master, the spiritual herbs have already been successfully grown. You should feed all of the spiritual herbs to milk tea, it can then break through one level. If you want to let milk tea progress faster, you must prepare more valuable spiritual herbs. Xiao Mo glanced at the silent young Luo Feng and continued to speak. Squeak, squeak. Milk tea could no longer restrain itself, and its round, big eyes whirled around, finally landing on the spiritual herbs in the medicinal herb field, almost drooling. Milk tea's current level is early level, low-rank spirit cultivator. After advancing one rank, it will reach early level, intermediate rank spirit cultivator. This strength doesn't have much use for me at present, but its hole digging speed would become much faster. Young Luo Feng lightly petted milk tea's little head. Go then, these spiritual herbs all belong to you. As a condition, the matter regarding the Yun residence underground training facility will be left to you. Squeak, squeak. Milk tea happily squeaked, jumping down from Yun Luo Feng's arms with a whoosh. It held a stock of spiritual herbs and began to nibble. Master, plant the medicinal herbs that you bought a few days ago in the field. Based on the field size, you should be able to plant 10 types of medicinal herb. These 10 types of medicinal herbs can incidentally be made into 2 types of medicinal liquid, which are the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid and marrow-cleansing liquid. Xiao Mo winked, his voice was as soft and fluffy as cotton candy. Master, the spirit-gathering medicinal liquid made from spiritual herbs can be used continuously for a month. Unlike those common herbal ingredients, whose basic effect will no longer be effective after just one day and completely lose its effect after a week. As for the marrow-cleansing liquid, there were records in the medical god code that it can improve a person's innate talent. Even if they are a waste, after frequently using the marrow-cleansing liquid, they can also turn into a genius. Young Luo Feng had indeed seen these 3 words, marrow-cleansing liquid, in the medical god code. This was the reason why she was confident in nurturing those waste to strong people. How many days are needed to turn these medicinal herbs into spiritual herbs? 15 days. 15 days. Hearing Xiao Mo's words, young Luo Feng was silent for a moment. Then, I will use these 15 days to take control of this team of 200 people. Chapter 60. Banquet Invitation 2. After leaving the medical god code, young Luo Feng's consciousness returned back into the room. She felt a hand caressing her cheek, the scorching fingertips made her instantly open her eyes. Her hand suddenly seized the other person's hand, and her narrowed eyes flashed with a streak of danger. Yun Xiao, what are you doing? If the person was not Yun Xiao but another man, she probably would have already thrown that man out. I wanted to watch you. The man's eyes were gazing directly at young Luo Feng. His clear gaze was like a wave of electric shock, ferociously slamming into young Luo Feng's heart. This guy did not know anything about the relationships between men and women, then how could he bear such lascivious thoughts? Obviously, she was thinking too much. Yun Xiao, young Luo Feng's expression gradually recovered to normal, and she languidly smiled. You sneakily came in here, I actually thought that you wanted to warm my bed. The man's gaze towards young Luo Feng was sincere and firm. If you're afraid of the cold, I will warm the bed for you every day. Young Luo Feng's expression froze for a moment and she helplessly sighed. Yun Xiao, have you ever touched a woman? The man shook his head honestly. How about a maidservant? No. You must have read Chungong too, right? Chungong too, what's that? The man wrinkled his brows, clearly not knowing what young Luo Feng was speaking of. Young Luo Feng stroked her forehead. Then besides cultivating, what else do you typically do? Kill people. The man's voice was so casual, as though killing people was just as simple as eating meals and it was an integral part of his daily life. Young Luo Feng was absolutely lost for words. She did not think that on this continent, there would actually be someone who had never touched a woman in his entire life. Where did he live these past years? After all, this Long Xia continent was not Hua Xia. In Hua Xia, even if you stayed at home, you could still have an understanding of the entire world. Yun Xiao, young Luo Feng lightly lifted her the corner of her lips, her absolutely beautiful appearance displaying a bewitching smile. When a person who's completely clueless about the relationship between a man and a woman like you walk outside, how did your body and heart manage not to succumb to women's deception? Towards Yun Xiao, her heart was full of curiosity. She did not know how he came to be through all these years, leading to him being this innocent. The man furrowed his brows. The women who wanted to get near me, I killed all of them. He detested the scent of other women's body. Whenever those women wanted to approach him, he would throw all of them to feed the wolves. Particularly, the emotion in their eyes when they look at him made him feel revolted without a reason. Only young Luo Feng. By her side, not only did he not feel disgusted, but he also wanted to get closer to her. Miss. At this time, Qingyan hurriedly rushed in from outside the house, speaking while gasping for breath. His Highness the Crown Prince had sent someone here, saying he wants to see eldest Miss. Ever since young Luo Feng had settled in the rear mountain, only Qingyan and Yun Xiao, those two, could come to the rear mountain. However, even if it was them, she would still not expose second uncle under their eyes. Crown Prince. Young Luo Feng lazily stretched herself, stepping down from the bed. I would actually like to know what this Crown Prince came here to find me for. Yes, Miss. Qingyan happily followed behind young Luo Feng, heading out of the door. After the two figures completely disappeared, Yun Xiao furrowed his brows, coldly calling, Lin Chong.